Hi, everybody. My name is Majid Al-Qasimi, and I am the founder and CEO of SOMA MATER. We are a consultancy focused on food and water security and sustainability in the MENA region. We're based out of the UAE, and we're looking forward to our guest for episode number 7. And with us today is Zachary Roy.
Hi, good to be
Zachary,
here.
thanks for being here. For those who don't know, you are overseeing the acclaimed LOWE restaurant.
Right, yeah.
But why don't you share with the audience what it is you do day to day and what got you here?
Sure. So day to day, we just make sure that LOWE is an experience for our guests, I guess is the best way you could say. We are a restaurant that we like to make it feel a bit rustic and you feel like you're at home, where you could take either your kids, your parents, or your partner. We don't take ourselves too seriously, except for the food, which we take exceptionally seriously.
And you didn't just fall into LOWE. Tell me a little bit about what was the journey like to coming to oversee a restaurant like this?
Yeah. So prior to being in Dubai, I was actually in Australia for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
And Australia has a big focus on sustainability with reusable things, cartridges, everything you can imagine, things that we haven't even seen done here yet, which I'd like to sort of bring over from what I've learned over there. And when I came to Dubai, I was looking for something to do and I fell upon LOWE, and I just absolutely fell in love with the concept, what they were doing. I spoke with the COO and the CEO, and I learned more about what their vision was. And I just went, this place, I have to work here. You know, it's not something that I want to, it's something that I need to work at.
Well, so LOWE has received a Michelin Green Star, not one, but 4 in a row.
4 years in a row. Yeah. First in the region in 2022 as well.
And if you're getting recognition for sustainability in restaurants, what does that look like on a day-to-day operationally?
I don't think we ever set out initially for the awards or the accolades, right? It's something that came directly from the top down, and it's just something that was ingrained because it's not something that we thought we wanted to do. It was something, again, that we needed to do. So, and it starts with small steps. Everyone thinks sustainability is buying a huge composting machine or creating its own composting unit, but it's not that. It's the steps you take day to day. The water we're drinking, for example, is Antipodes. It's carbon neutral water, the first in the world. We work with suppliers that are local. We try and change food seasonally. So these are not drastic things that, you need to invest hugely into. It's things that you can do progressively day to day. It's 1,000 little things, not one giant step, is what we like to say here. And it doesn't mean that because we've won these awards and these accolades that we're now done. No, it's something that we think of every day and how to improve every step of every aspect, from procurement to how we plate it to, essentially food waste. And it's just something that we progressively do every day.
So if we're talking about 1,000 little things, you're not doing 1,000 little things. The CEO isn't doing 1,000. The whole team is, right? So what does it take to bring everybody on board to that way of thinking? When I think about what you were talking to in terms of sustainability, that sustainability is all about behavior in the company, and ultimately what I hope you're delivering is also behavior in your customers. Could you talk a little bit about how you guys have been building out that in the team?
Yeah, it starts, and I hate to use this word because everyone uses it, it starts with the culture that you have with the team, right? And it's very easy to come into a company. Anybody that we've hired new that wants to come on board, they'll go, this is what we do, just do it. That's not why or how we do things here. There needs to be a fundamental understanding about the why. So it's not just this is how, this is why. We compost our organic food because we don't want it to go to waste. We want to put the compost into the garden, which reflects more growth, and the team can understand the entire, circular value of this produce. It's not just do this. A doesn't lead to B. A is because it goes all the way to Z, and these are the understandings for the whole concept through. And then when it comes to our guests, a lot of them don't understand. We get a lot of people that come in and go, oh, you're a Michelin Green Star. Great. What does that mean?
Oh, really?
100%. We get a lot of people that will come because it's in the guide, but they don't fully comprehend that the green stands for sustainable gastronomy.
Right. Okay.
And then we get to take them across that journey, across that path. And it ends up being, they will come back not because of the experience they had, which we hope is something that they've enjoyed, but because they want to learn more. They want to know what those next steps are. They want to see in 6 months how the menu has changed because we're using seasonal produce, or what offcuts we've used to create the next dish in our next menu, because that's always a forward thought process that we have as well.
There's two things you've mentioned that I really want to focus on. One, you mentioned a garden. Mm-hmm. So you've got a garden attached to this restaurant. And the other I'll get to later, which is you talk about, produce in season. So we'll circle back, but I want to know about the garden you guys have here.
Yeah. So anything organically waste that we can compost, we have a bin in the back. So in a normal kitchen, you will have, your wastes and maybe somewhere you put your dishes, etc. We also have a live compact organic compost bin.
Yep.
So you're thinking like eggshells, your spent coffee, anything that we make all our own fresh juices. So the watermelon rinds, the orange peels, anything that's rich in nutrients, things like that. And we put it into this machine. We let it stir. We let it get damp, and then out the bottom comes this compost. Mm-hmm. Now it's not something drastic. It's not going to supply an entire farm.
Sure.
But what it does do is we have this little patch that we call the LOWE garden.
Yeah.
And we put the produce that you would normally see on our menu. So we have basils, we have bird's eye chilies that we have in our mocktails and our drinks. We have cherry tomatoes, we have aubergines, and that sort of does two things. One, it encourages the team to learn this whole cycle that we have. Mm-hmm. But two, and the biggest thing that we see the biggest smiles of is when our guests, we're very, very blessed to have a big plot of land that we can work with here. We have a kids play area just beside us, and beside that is where the garden is.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids will run over and they'll start taking off aubergines, or they'll taking chilies, or they'll take basil leaves, and they'll come to their parents, and the parents obviously start freaking out and go, "Oh my God, what have you done to their garden?" And we actually go, "No, you know what? Here's a takeaway box." We encourage,
oh wow, cool,
like, take it home with you. And a lot of gifts will be given out sometimes in restaurants. What we give out for our birthdays is a card that says "Happy Birthday," and we staple seedlings in it that tells you what the seedling is. And we encourage people to go home and try and plant their own garden.
Amazing.
And then a lot of the staff end up just taking the aubergines, tomatoes home themselves, and they make their own little garden, and or they make their own little garden salads, is what I meant to say, and just enjoy the fruits of their labor while, keeping this tight-knit closure of the food was picked, it was made into a dish, it's been composted, and now all of a sudden you've created this out of that.
So you guys are working from a garden, and as a restaurant that's growing in season, it's reflective of what's happening in the food system here in the UAE. Mm-hmm. Would you talk to us about, consistency in the food system here, and what you guys are using season to season, and what challenges it might represent?
I'll start with the most obvious one, which is the challenges. So when you're working with ingredients that don't exist during, or not necessarily don't exist, but the quality is not there. Because at the end of the day, yes, the focus is on seasonal menu and sustainability, and consistency is key. But if the quality isn't there, then we have to sort of expand the net until we can find that product. But the UAE has some incredible things. The farms, there's tens and hundreds of thousands of farms that are expanding now. So the choice is exponentially growing.
Oh, amazing.
And hydroponically growing. They're doing some really, really amazing things. I think we've changed tomato suppliers like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, really?
Because sometimes during this time of year, the hydroponics are juicy, full of flavor, and it works. And other times we get it through, non-hydroponic means, through just growing it.
Okay.
And it's just, you have to commit, you have to care, because it's not easy. There is going to be struggles for it, but it has to be something, like we said earlier, you have to know why you're doing it, and you can push forward through it. Because if it's just a checkbox, then it's not good. It's going to reflect on the plate, right?
There you go.
And the chefs have to be committed to it. It's something that they need to want to do. And luckily, we've developed a culture here that all the chefs are always putting forward dishes. They're like, "Oh, Zach," or to our head chef Ali, like, "I've just come up with this. Do you want to try it?" And that's so encouraged, because we've come up with some really, really amazing things just based on chefs going, I was playing around with this ingredient that we got from a supplier, and because we sort of have that reputation, these suppliers will go, hey, this month, this is what's, we have in abundance here, or this is what we want to push because there's the produce is really exceptional. And so we go, okay, what do we want to put on the plate and how do we do it with this ingredient? And what we can do a lot of the times is we can have the same dish, but change it completely just by changing one ingredient.
Okay.
Right? So instead of a tomato, it's all of a sudden it's an aubergine, and it completely changes the dish. And then you work around that and work on how to make it so that it's a memorable dish that people want to keep coming back for, at least for that season until it changes again.
What I'm hearing there is like you're constantly evolving as the season moves, and what you're plating is changing and can change, and so that takes work. It makes me think about the challenge of, rather than making sustainability an aesthetic thing, which some purveyors of sustainability do, it's actually built in. What do you think is the challenge for other business operators, or specifically restaurateurs, to get to where you are today? I mean, you've talked about culture, but really, what is the difference between the way you're approaching it versus any other restaurant has tried?
I mean, touching on what you said, there's the term greenwashing that becomes very popular in Dubai, especially when COP28 was here a few years ago. There was a lot of restaurants saying, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, and sort of showing off. But then the question is, did that continue on after COP28 was over? And I think the most important thing for us is when we do these things and we develop these systems, it's not because we're doing them to be seen. It's not because we're doing them for the accolades. It's something that we believe in. And I think that's the big difference between a restaurant that is sustainable and then a restaurant that's trying to be sustainable. We don't consider ourselves a sustainable restaurant. We're a restaurant that has an ethos of sustainability. We didn't set out to be a Michelin Green Star or all these other things, right? We set out to be a restaurant that people wanted to bring their friends, their family to. They can enjoy a really good meal that's creative with cuts that they've never tried before, produce that changes, and just the sustainable part was sort of filled in through the background. So I don't think people can have the mindset of going, we need to be sustainable because that's who our identity is going to be. They need to go, what is our identity? And then have that working in the background, because it just needs to be something ingrained. Because if it's something that you're trying to push, but no one believes in, then it's ultimately going to fall through the cracks.
I think there's a really, something that makes me really happy to hear is there is an admission that the limitations of what's being a sustainable restaurant means. And the idea is to strive towards that goal, as opposed to say, we're sustainable and then sort of wash it all into an image. You guys are walking the talk, and you can see it on the plates. You can see it in the flavors. I mean, I've enjoyed LOWE multiple times, and every time it's been different and every time it's been exceptional. There's another component in when we talk about food systems, and when your customers are looking at the plate, is understanding where everything comes from, right? And you do a good job of explaining this, but you've gone the next step and you're talking about traceability, right? And when you think about traceability in food, there are a number of sort of tracks you can follow, where your vegetables are coming from, where your proteins are coming from. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about why you guys have done that and why it's important.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, data and proof is going to be what everybody needs to see, right? And it's something that we need to see as the restaurant, because if I'm telling you our food is locally sourced, and then if you go, great, where's it from? And I go, from the farm down the road, but I don't have any evidence of it, then it becomes a little bit greenwashing, as we might have said earlier, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of people and companies, third party, that you can work with. For example, we work with the Sustainable Restaurant Association that helps you develop like the provenance of your food, and it's very transparent because you get a grade and it's out for the public to see, and there's nothing to hide. And particularly, we work with a company called Seafood Souk for our seafood. We do have a lot of seafood on the menu. We tend to pivot between the summertime and the wintertime, because we think the local fisheries during the summer don't taste quite as nice because of the temperature of the water, which a lot of people don't take into consideration.
Right.
So we try to be more produce heavy during the hotter months, and then more protein heavy during those colder months. But with this company, we can see what flights the produce has come in on, whether it was, line caught or farmed.
Yeah.
And we've gone that next step further. So on our digital menu, there's a little thing that says seafood souk. If you click on it, you'll see all our seafood, and it will tell you where it's from, how it's caught, etc.
Amazing.
So it's putting it forward to the guest to see. They don't need to look at it. It's not something that we're forcing down people's throats, but if they want to, it's right there for them to see. And we need to be accountable for what we're putting on the plate, and the only way to do that is with data and facts and, showing the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. No, we're big friends of seafood souk, and I'm glad to hear that. It makes me wonder, what is it you think in modern hospitality, what is the provenance of food to consumers today? What do you see as the thing that they're being drawn to? Why do people want to know where the food's coming from?
Well, I mean, there's a romantic part about it, right? Saying I'm supporting a local farmer, or I've got the fish just down the road, or alternatively, if we say this halibut is from this market, they can go and see it with their own eyes. But more importantly, I think if you see, oh, my steak is from America, well, how did it get here?
Yeah.
Right. So, and it didn't teleport here. It didn't instantly change here. It obviously would have had to have been most likely sometimes frozen. It would have been put on a truck. It would have been refrigerated. It would have been flown. And a lot of people don't want to be dealing with food that's that complicated when they could just go down the road. And at the same time, obviously, certain countries are more popular or famous for certain produce or fruits, especially in vegetables. So they want to know where it's coming from so they can make that informed decision. Whether they do or not is entirely up to them. But I think they like to have the choice and to know exactly what they're putting into their body, because the most important thing you put in.
There's something about this new, I would say it's new. There's something about a segment of consumers that want to be well informed, and more so that percentage of consumers that are very conscious about what they're consuming, where it's coming from, that they're part of a food system. It isn't everybody, but I think the steps you've taken are starting to bring more awareness to where food is traveled to be able to get to your plate. And the way I like to say it is, if we could get consumers to look through the plate into the logistics and the transport, they'd have a very different idea of what they're eating.
100%.
And there's a naivety of where food is on your plate and how long it's traveled. I mean, we're literally eating a global logistics system on the plate. But when we're talking about supporting a local food system and a restaurant like LOWE that's being very curated about what comes into the plate, what do you think a restaurant's role is in a food system? I mean, you're participating in some very extra high effort to make plates very transparent. What do you think restaurants and those that you're part of in the association should be doing to showcase a food system's capability, local or internationally?
That's a great question. I mean, ultimately, we will sort of decide what farmers end up growing, right? A very close friend of mine, Omar from Boca, he said that to me once, and it really resonated with me, because as much as we like to think that farmers are going to go, there's oranges this season, but if no one's buying oranges or putting oranges onto their plates or juices, then they're going to stop growing it. So I think people don't realize that what the consumers choose to eat will affect what the restaurants put on their plate, which inevitably affects what the farmers grow. So it is a complex system. It is, a lot of it leads to financial as well. So the farmers, exactly for that reason, are going to grow what we want. But it's up to us to sort of put the information out there, and then the consumer is going to decide what they want. But at the end of the day, if you can paint that story and you can make it transparent and you can show them exactly what we've discussed already today, that, this quality and this quality are the same, but you can buy this down the road versus that, and you're supporting local. You live in the UAE. There's so many brilliant food options and farmers and everything that are involved in what you put in your body day to day, whether it's at the supermarket or whether it's here, that we don't have to, keep going back and doing what, generation before us was doing, because that's not what we need to do anymore. And the information coming through is, I think, making the consumer a lot smarter, a lot more savvy. We even launched what we're calling the longevity menu, which is a pun on longevity.
Nice. I like it.
For our consumers that are very conscious about what they're putting in. So it's no gluten, no dairy, no seed oils. And because there's a portion of the consumer that's growing and growing that wants to know exactly what they're putting into their body. And it's inevitably leading to changes in the restaurant, which leads to changes in the farming, which is going to lead to changes globally.
I have to reflect on how we've become more conscious, be it through social media or all the information that's available on the internet. And even, in the recent situation where the Strait of Hormuz was closed, down the road lives a fisherman that we know. And between me having fish on the menu and asking him how the catch was, I'm having a fish I'm assuming has been caught from somewhere. And he goes, no, we can't get out in the boats. We're not allowed. He's like, what you're eating is from Oman. I was like, oh, okay. I have more information about what I'm eating. And now I know the journey that's traveled. Today, more than anything, being consumers and wanting to support your local ecosystem. It's interesting because we at SOMA have just done a pricing model for a consolidator and for a farm collection system. And we've learned for them and worked with them that, hey, you actually have to ask the consumer what you need to grow rather than grow all these varieties and hope somebody will take it. Right. And somebody once told me, you don't build a farm and then hope to sell what you grow. You understand what you've got to sell, and then you build the farm to grow it. And just thinking about the food system and the food chain in that sort of reverse order really is where you guys are at the consumer side of things, saying, okay, well, people are more conscious. People need to know where it's coming from. We have to look back and find the right suppliers to be able to reflect that.
And we've swapped suppliers for many reasons. One is because they refuse to deliver in non-single plastic items, which is, so
packaging, big part of that.
Packaging is a huge thing that people, diners in the restaurant might not realize the lengths that restaurants will go through to find the supplier that fits what they believe in. And if it's not delivered in cardboard boxes or reusable boxes that some suppliers I know use with us, then we'll change supplier. And so, our dollar affects them. And so if enough people do it, then they're going to pivot from single-use plastic to, these recyclable options because they don't really have a choice.
So it makes me think about what we were talking about before we got on the podcast. You guys have worked together with other restaurants, and you mentioned the composting earlier. I wonder if you think there's potential where restaurants could work together in, say, a composting hub or some sort of collective action. And I wanted your thoughts on that.
I do. I really do. I've mentioned this in panels and discussions in the past. When I talk about the composting here, like I said, we're very, very lucky that we've got a plot of land, that we can have a garden and we can do it ourselves. And it's just because it's something we believe in. But I know a lot of restaurants, let's say in the Palm or DIFC, where, they're working with a lot more limited space than we'll have, might not have that option to put the compost somewhere. So I think if we had some sort of hub, or if we had some sort of mobile action where a van can come around every 5 days, 7 days, collect it, and then put it into a hub that's work with, obviously we can work with DET or anyone from government.
You're not
and
working
make these,
with anybody in particular for your current composting action?
it's just something we do ourselves. So all the compost we put actually into our own our garden.
It makes me wonder, we have friends, the Waste Lab.
Yeah,
I think you
I
should
know
be
them very
talking.
well.
Yeah, well, you know them
Yeah,
well.
I
I
know
think
them
there's
well.
maybe a collab that we could facilitate.
Now imagine if we could collaborate 50 restaurants all into one spot.
That would be
And then I mentioned earlier that what we're doing is not enough to fuel a farm, but if all of a sudden you've got every restaurant in DIFC, you've got every restaurant in Palm, you've got every restaurant in Albarari doing it all together, working toward a single goal, then I think we could really make something really cool. And we can work maybe with this particular farmer that we're doing these things and grow what we're asking them to grow again, using our own compost.
And then you get some real multiple circularity.
Exactly. And we can paint this story and we can let our guests know, like, hey, don't worry about, this waste that we have here. It's going right back here. And if we could get these farm visits going on, and then all of a sudden we're benefiting, the farm is benefiting, the guests are hearing a story, they can go check it out themselves. It's something they can touch, they can hold in their hand, as opposed to something they read in a pamphlet. Yeah.
There's at SOMA MATER, we're very much about this microcircularity. Like you said, you need to do 1,000 things, and that sort of makes that collective action or that compounding effect. I think people underestimate what, at a business level, small contributions, but in a larger community, could affect not only change, but create models of value and sustainability. And then I think often about, for different people, different reasons, but for you, why does it matter?
Look, it's the same thing that I hear friends from, I'm Canadian, we vote for a prime minister. What does one vote do? People think nothing. But if everyone comes around and you vote for things, or you do things individually because it's things you believe in, and it builds this community around itself, then that's the only way change can happen.
Yeah.
Right? It's never going to be one person who changes everything. No, it's going to be a group of people that have come together under the same belief to change these. Now, whether that's a hub or whether that's more responsibility and traceability, we ultimately have the power to come together and make the change, because saying, oh, one person or one restaurant's not going to do anything, well, times that by 1,000, maybe one isn't going to affect 1,000, but because 1,000 people have said it, well, that could make a drastic change.
It makes me wonder then about the people you have at the tables here, your consumers. Often when we discuss the food system and looking for local sourcing, sustainability, organic, there's always this discussion about price and quality. Where do you think the consumer sits, or what kind of consumer is coming to LOWE?
I think historically, price would have had a much larger effect on whether or not someone is going to choose something. But nowadays, and I don't want to say that you have to spend an arm and a leg to do organic or longevity or whatever.
We don't believe in it being inaccessible.
It's not what it might have been 10, 15 years ago. And the prices are not reflective of what it would have been 10, 15 years ago, because it's exponentially, as we said, exploded, the farms that are doing it. And obviously with R&D, technology gets things to become cheaper. So now all of a sudden the produce that is organic is, easily more accessible. It might not have the shelf life of something that's grown with pesticides and everything, but that's a good thing. And ultimately the guests that come to LOWE are, I don't want to say happy to pay more money. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying they're happy to pay for what they believe the value of the food is, right? At the end of the day, value is just something that we've put onto it.
Yeah.
So if they don't see the value, then they're not going to pay for something. But if they see the story, the provenance, where it's coming from, the effort we've put in, why we're doing it, they understand that it isn't just something that we've ticked to greenwash. Sort of everything we've already just discussed into one sentence is, they're happy to commit to coming here to do that because they see the value in itself.
What, moving forward for LOWE, is the next thing you guys are going to tackle? Is it something in the traceability space? Is it sustainability? What's your next nudge in the direction that you guys are going?
That's a good question, but it's day to day. Like I said, like we've said, 1,000 little things. So is there something hugely drastic that we want to start implementing now? No, but are there a lot of small things that we've already started implementing? Yes, I think the biggest thing is communication.
Okay.
I'm an advocate for this, that the biggest thing is, I was recently on a panel with the same people that I've done a panel with multiple times.
We know the
right?
usual suspects,
It's the usual suspects, and they're all fantastic, and they're all people I'm very happy to call friends. But the moderator even said, well, how come it's always you guys?
Yeah.
How come it's always the same people discussing the topics? And the solution I think I have to that is, I know a lot of restaurants that are doing some really, really exceptional things, but they're not promoting it. For what we said earlier, they don't want to be labeled as the sustainable hotel or the sustainable restaurant, because there is sort of a stigma that's that's, you know, if you get labeled that, then all of a sudden that's the only people that are going to come into the restaurant.
Right.
In reality, like we've said, we are a restaurant that's happy what we put on the plate, that has an ethos of sustainability. And I think just getting more people involved, getting communication out there that everybody can do this. With the Sustainable Restaurant Association, they make you do a lot of they make you submit a lot of your SOPs and how you do things, so you don't just say, yes, we did it. They go, okay, prove it.
Show me it's
and
part
then
of
what we want to do is we want to share all this proof that we have, because we're not gatekeeping. We're not keeping this a secret. Like, if you want to know how our aubergine dip is made, we might keep that as a secret close to the chest. But if you want to know how we sourced, you know, the aubergines locally, then we're more than happy to have that conversation and share. And I think, like we said, it's not one vote that changes, but one vote times 1,000 can make a drastic change. So getting everybody else on board, and, you know, I don't want to be having the same discussions with the same people every time. I want to see the other people projecting what they're doing because they're proud of it, not because it's greenwashed, sort of thing.
It's so interesting to hear you use the word stigma and then the concern about how your customers change. And I've had my hand in some F&B, and you're sort of looking for a crowd and avoiding another crowd by sheer dynamics of what it does to your business. Do you feel that there's a way that we can raise awareness and bring more champions to the table without it becoming, call it, so drastically impactful in a negative context? I mean, what's interesting, you're talking about the association, right? The Sustainable Restaurant Association. I love that idea. I love that there are people. And I'm sort of going on a rant here, but I also am part of that sort of cadre of people that are always on stage and always talking about these things. But I think that's because we're the tip of the spear, right? That spear is long. It has many contributors, many people involved. How do we get more people on stage to talk about it? And how do we get more people involved without that stigma? I wonder if you had a perspective.
It is seeing a slight change, and it's always like in history. It's slowly and then all at once.
Yeah.
Right.
So like it's we're waiting for that all at once.
Slowly, all at once. And I think we're right at the precipice where it's about to fall off the cliff, and it's gonna flood. Like I said, with our guests, half the time when they come here, they don't understand what a green star represents. And then once we teach them, it's, you know, they didn't come here for that. They enjoyed their meal, but then they want to learn more. And they didn't come here because that was, you know, the clientele we were trying to bring in. They came here because they saw the food on Instagram, or they heard about it from a friend, and they want to come. And then we help teach what they want to learn, right? There's a very fine line, because I don't want to sit here while you're having your meal and me lecture you about the things we do, right? So, but if you're curious, I'm more than happy to walk you down the path we've taken and what we've done. At the same time, while you can still enjoy, you know, lunch or dinner with your friend or your family. But it's slowly coming around. I think the consumer is very much changing. And then once, like we said earlier, once the consumer changes, the restaurants have to adapt. And once restaurants understand that consumers want to understand the story of where their food is coming from, all at once.
There's an interesting fine line between, as you say, being lectured at the table. My wife and I, we dine out frequently, and you can tell those that have the tact when you're engaged to learn, and when you're here for a meal and, you know, service is pushing the story and you're like, it's okay, I get it. You represent a very, in my mind, a very important point of education on the food system. As I like to say that, there's a food valley where a consumer doesn't know where all the food they're eating is coming from. And restaurants are the first point, probably the most significant point of where they can bring people and close that valley and educate. I think it's great that you guys are doing this, and we hope that we find more people like you, like LOWE, that can share the story of where food's coming from to the public, and essentially bring more collaborators to the table. So I think that's a great journey that we're all on. And I would wonder what in that you're saying communication is the most important. Where do you think we could do better at communicating?
I mean, a lot of people don't want to communicate because they're not sure if the consumer wants to hear it, right? And I can tell you from very personal experience that if you can put it out there, again, not in a
preachy way,
in a Charlie Brown the teacher, we can get, and the people want to learn, and it's about we have to understand that not everybody is going to want to learn it, and then some people are going to absorb it like a sponge. But I think it's just staying consistent, staying honest, staying transparent, making sure that when guests ask any questions, you do have the evidence to back it up, and not just saying, yes, we do that. Now eat your salad and no more questions. And just being able to have honest conversations and provide things to the guests, because they do want to know, and sometimes they just want to know a little bit and a lot, but it's up to us inevitably, and it's up to our friends in the spaces to also to have that discussion, because it's not just about the restaurants, right? There's bigger pictures involved. There's, like we said, food systems, there's water supply, there's fisheries, there's what happens when, as you said, the Strait of Hormuz closes, and all of a sudden, it's not just people's Amazon orders that are getting affected, but all of a sudden their favorite restaurants can't put their favorite dish on the menu because pricing has gone up. There's all of a sudden new freight charges that are getting involved when there's travel involved. People don't understand that it's a whole logistical nightmare when something over here happens, and now it's affecting the way you put food on the plate. I know we had to change a few menu items since the beginning of March due to supply issues, logistic issues. So it's about being honest with them, and why some places have put their prices up, and you go, well, why? Well, because we can't get it from where we used to, and now we've had to change suppliers, and now all of a sudden everyone's going, hey, local is actually pretty good because it's the only option we have, but now we've forced to try it, and all of a sudden it's changing the way people's perspective of it.
It's interesting how the food systems come into the spotlight when everybody's expecting their favorite dish and it's not available.
And then they go, why? And then they go, well, are you aware what's happening?
I think they know about that, but I don't think they realize that their food system
there's a huge correlation, because your food that's come from over here has to get here somehow, as we touched on earlier. And if those pathways are closed or affected, all of a sudden, shopping local has a really nice ring to it.
We had an experience in the office where one of the team members was talking about taking her dad out for Father's Day to a restaurant that her dad loves and she loves, and he loves moule frite, mussels and fries, and they were expecting it to be there, and they rock them. That's the one thing that's not on the menu, and it's funny at this point, like how people may have to call ahead and just double check that their favorite dish is there, and so that awareness is just growing. My last question for you, Zachary, if you could change one thing in the industry you're in the region, what would it be and why?
Just one?
Well, we're here about making practical changes.
Look, I pushed for it earlier, and I'll keep pushing it till it happens. I said something like a hub for composting, but it doesn't necessarily have to be for composting. It can be for many different things. But
Right.
what I think is, and I think this would help if we had a platform to come together through, Dubai government, where everybody could put their input in and how to collaborate together. Because at the end of the day, if a couple restaurants start failing, then, slowly, then all at once, all of them are going to fail. So I think ensuring that the community has a place where we can work out these issues together. And I know that's sort of like a global, like a very, huge thing as opposed to one thing that I'd want to change. But if we have a platform where we can discuss all these little things that we'd want to change, and then, it's like signing a petition. All of a sudden, if you've got 80% of Dubai restaurants saying we want this, a hub or more local farmers or focus on this, I think then the noise is extremely loud when everybody's involved.
One thing I reflect in what you're asking there, typically you'll find more collaboration from government when there's already something moving, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's between your collaborators, you find them, you bring them together, you show a model that works, then it'll steamroll, as opposed to asking for permission or looking to have somebody start it. I think
forgiveness, not permission.
There you go. Exactly. Zachary, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
Glad to be here at LOWE. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, share the episode, and leave us a comment. Until next time, thank you for listening.